go. PodJamTV Live, another Sunday night.
Hello, people.
With Marty and Misty. Hi, Misty. How are you?
I'm good, Marty.
Excellent.
And tonight we have our special guest.
We are thrilled. In fact, it's our first repeat guest.
Yes.
She was so incredible.
Oh, yes.
The last time around. You know, I mean, we had to have her back.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And this being kind of tax time, we're going to talk business.
Yes.
And we have Michelle Mangen with us. Now, we had Michelle back a few weeks ago to talk about the virtual assistance business.
And now she's back to help us discuss some of the questions and give us answers to some of the questions that we have. How small businesses, you know, can benefit from having a bookkeeper.
Absolutely. Yep.
During tax time.
Michelle,
hey,
how are
guys.
you? Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you for having me back again.
Absolutely. We are thrilled. Our first repeat guest. Not only are we on with PodJamTV Live, but this is also going to be used on this week's podcast, Inspiring Connections, which you can download from iTunes. But before we get into it, Michelle, why don't you refresh everybody, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the virtual assistance business. Then we'll get into the importance of bookkeeping and small business.
Got it. What was the first part of that question again? Introduce yourself.
Just a little bit about yourself. Kind of refresh everybody who Michelle Mangen is.
Yes.
And what you do.
I'm a virtual assistant. Michelle Mangen. My Twitter handle is MMANGEN, Mangen. A virtual assistant. I live in Sarasota, Florida, and I've been doing virtual assistant work for just a little bit over 4 years now.
Excellent. Very good.
So now we go to our formal questions.
Yes. Since this is about bookkeeping and accounting and how it applies to small business, why don't you tell me how you got started in the bookkeeping accounting business?
Actually, I went to school for bookkeeping, and all my previous jobs with different companies have primarily been bookkeeping. When I started my business, I thought that would kind of be like my main service offering. What I didn't take into account with everything being virtual is the additional level of trust that's needed with the bookkeeping side of things, because there typically tends to be quote unquote more sensitive data that happens in that type of relationship. Yeah. So I actually, as I was thinking about tonight's chat with the two of you, next week, the 17th, so a week from today, it'll be 4 years now that I've been working with both my official first client as well as my first bookkeeping client, and I still work with him actually.
Wow,
man, that
interesting.
Was that a fast 4 years or what?
Yeah, it has been. I'll probably ping him next week and be like, "Hey, Jason, guess what? Like, it's been 4 years that we've been working together now." Who would have thought?
Excellent. Why don't you tell us some of the benefits of small business owners can gain from using a bookkeeper instead of trying to do everything themselves?
Yeah.
A lot of people, I believe, are like super, super smart business owners, but bookkeeping tends to be one of those pain points. From some of the comments I see that come through on my website questionnaire, I've been training this one guy. We've been meeting every Friday since the beginning of January, and I've been trying to teach him QuickBooks because he actually had a system in place, but his accountant said, if you don't start doing things in QuickBooks, I'm not going to file your taxes anymore. So he said, hey, Michelle, will you teach me how to do this? And last Friday, he said, I feel as though every time I'm doing this, I'm slowly poisoning myself. Can't you just do it all for me? I was like, yes, I'd absolutely love to do that for you.
So you, I mean, obviously now, back in the day, for people that old enough to remember, you could use accounting books or do things longhand or maybe keep a shoebox with receipts or whatever you need to do. But I guess a lot of accountants are requiring much more automated systems now.
Yeah, and especially like in his case, even my accountant, they told me, because I thought I'd be really nice and give them reports from QuickBooks. But a couple of years ago, she said, if you don't fill stuff out on our planner, Like, we don't care that we appreciate that it's on QuickBooks, but because they can fix things easier, but everybody has their little systems that they want. And I suppose in the case of accountants, they probably want to get people in and out of the door as fast as possible because it's a busy, busy time of year for them.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Before we leave this particular topic, do you have any recommendation? I mean, QuickBooks, I guess, comes up a lot. I've heard of that being a very popular accounting program. Are there any recommendations you have for business owners to kind of keep track of their income and expense on their side as far as computer programs?
I've certainly recommend QuickBooks quite a bit. I used to be a pro advisor with them. Mm-hmm. I've used Cashew, which is not spelled like the nut. It's Kashoo. That one works well if you have currency exchanges between, for example, Canada and the U.S. Mm-hmm. I personally hate the software, but I have a client that uses it, so obviously I keep working with it. TJ McHugh, I think, had a post on Forbes recently with some different packages, and I think Wave Accounting was on there. For myself, like almost all of my people are on QuickBooks, mm-hmm. with the exception of that one on Cashew. So admittedly, I don't stay like as up to date, but I heard that Wave is free. Now, whether or not that's the case, I can't 100% verify that.
Yeah, free is always good for a lot of people. I'm sure that's a big motivator for people to get involved in a software package.
Plus, we'll make sure that we put all of this in the show notes.
All the links.
Everyone who's watching right now, it's like, oh, what is that she said again? We'll make sure that it's in the show notes. Okay, what are some of the most frequent questions you get from business owners about how to work with a virtual bookkeeper? Because you are a virtual bookkeeper too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably the question I hear most often is a combination of two things that kind of come down to one. Like, how do we get the data back and forth to each other? And then how do you get that data into QuickBooks? Mm-hmm. So in some instances, QuickBooks Online makes it pretty darn easy because it's just web-based. Desktop versions of QuickBook tend to be a little bit harder. I have two people we use remote access from my computer to theirs with QuickBooks. I have one who we use Log Me In. And then I have a number of clients who they don't care where it's hosted. It's just, can they have the reports and can they have what they need when they need it? Mm-hmm. In that case, I actually keep their books on my computer, on my hard drive in my QuickBooks. And that way I don't have to worry about remoting into their computer to do things. I don't have issues if the computer's off, although that's like pretty rare that I encounter that with people. So those are kind of like the three different ways that I get into QuickBooks to do the work for them. As far as the actual data getting back and forth, I have one person that just emails me when she makes a deposit. Some give me access to their credit cards, bank accounts, PayPal, and I just get what I need. Mm-hmm. And I ask the questions. And then some people email the stuff to me because most banks and PayPal, you can get PDF or Excel versions of files. So it's pretty simple to pull the data you need. And I always tell my bookkeeping clients, I don't ask questions because I'm nosy. I ask questions because I really just need to make sure I put things in their proper home.
So there's a great degree of trust, I would think, with business owners and you, especially when you're dealing with very sensitive information. So that's something I would think that would be built up over time, I would think.
Yeah. And that's why it was hard initially for me to get started too, just because, I don't know, like randomly trusting someone to do your bookkeeping. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's done.
Yep.
Like my first client, like he randomly trusted me. But some of the other ones, it took a couple of years to build up to that point.
Yeah, I would think also also virtually over the computer. I mean, there's something about maybe not having someone in the same room that has to build up some trust. And I mean, I think that's just an educational thing because that's really kind of the wave of the future or really the present. You know, when you think about it, you don't have to be in the same location. You don't have to use someone that's in your city or town. I mean, technology's allowed us to branch out and and really use that to our advantage as far as enlarging the pool of possible vendors, and certainly virtual bookkeepers is one of them. So that's good to hear. I mean, that's where it's really headed. if you were to give business owners some tips as far as saving tax, it's kind of setting themselves up, now that 2012 is over and people are filing their taxes, what can some business owners do in 2013 maybe to save on the taxes, or maybe some simple things that, might benefit them as when tax time comes around next year?
If they're going to use a virtual bookkeeper, certainly not using cash is a good thing, because it's a lot harder to track the cash. Or it's not so that it's hard to track the cash. I don't know that most of us are disciplined enough to record it consistently all the time. So we probably miss some deductions if we use cash for things. So if working with a virtual bookkeeper in particular, be helpful if everything's done, via debit or credit card.
Right.
I would say talk to a tax, like whoever's filing taxes, for God's sakes. I hope if someone's like in business, they're not using like someone like H&R Block, and I'm not saying that they're bad. I just don't know that they're well equipped with the small training that people get there.
Right.
And I say that because I worked there a year.
So you're kind of saying with kind of those big outfits, those big, kind of national tax preparers, that they might be a little too general to handle maybe the special needs of a small business owner, and maybe depending on what area they're in or what business they're in, it might make more sense to kind of get a specialist. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, like someone who basically breathes, eats, and sleeps doing tax returns, essentially. Like my person, I had like a huge income increase from year 2 to year 3. So we did not plan properly. We talked about things, but based on my projections, we were way off. And so I ended up changing over to an S Corp. I don't know that someone that's working at these big, box places that pop up momentarily, that they're knowledgeable enough to like necessarily know something of that nature, that it's time to like switch an entity type. Because I do bookkeeping and I'm somewhat familiar with what's like deductible versus what's not. I'm like really good about asking my person like, hey, can I write this off? Can I not write this off? If I can't, why can't I? So I would say like in addition to that, like keeping good records, of course, is important, and working on things maybe on a monthly basis, because trying to remember like, why did I go to XYZ?
Yeah, I guess you don't want to stuff everything in a shoebox all year round and then get to like December or January and start pulling these miscellaneous receipts out. I was like, oh, what's this from? What's this parking charge for? Oh, I have no idea where that conference is from, or what goes with what, or whatever. So kind of having a regular routine, a monthly routine, probably is very valuable.
Do, remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He would always like have me write down notes, like.
Yeah.
Make sure that, put it in the notes so I can remember when we use this. Or
I can barely remember last week, so I mean, I need all the help I can get. So
I barely remember yesterday sometimes.
Oh yeah, exactly. You want to take the next question? No. Right, number 5.
Okay. Any last minute tips to maximize your tax bill for 2012 tax year?
Because I know that this is right now, we're coming to the end here, but do you have, you must come across
it's already
people,
March,
right? Yeah.
April 15.
Any last minute tips? It's like, oh man, if I can just reduce that tax bill a little bit this year, can I do something?
I think like depending on what type of entity people are, for example, I'm an S Corp now. So it probably would be too late if someone didn't already have it set up, but I don't even know that I'm pronouncing it right, a SEP, self-employed pension plan or whatever. And I have until April 15th, I think. I literally just set it up in December. But based on what my taxes are, like that's one way I could further reduce them. Of course, there's the 401ks, that you can do that too. For next year, if someone doesn't have it, like certainly an HSA for the self-employed.
That might help. No, just to clarify, it's health savings account, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Again, we'll need to get all of this from you.
Yep.
So we can add it up. Because it helps.
It's interesting you bring that up. Health savings accounts. I mean, that is a great suggestion because that's all before tax money, I believe, right?
Yeah, and I think for a single person, it was raised to like $3,250 this year. You can contribute, so it's a fair amount to not have to pay taxes on. I mean, it's not a huge amount, but if you're going to have to pay medical expenses anyway, my eyes, why not make them, pre-tax?
Yeah, and that comes right off the top line. So, I mean, that reduces your taxable income right off the bat. So if you're going to spend that money anyways, you plan a little bit. And if you know you kind of plan out your medical expenses, if you know you're going to go see the doctor or dentist, whatever, and you have an idea of what you're going to spend, it makes a lot more sense to spend that money pre-tax than paying taxes on it and spending the after-tax money. So that's a great suggestion. That's excellent. What are some of the biggest mistakes? I mean, you must see just in your you've been a VA for 4 years now. You do bookkeeping. I mean, I'm sure you have stories. Without getting into any confidential stuff, you must see some whoppers as far as mistakes or especially novices or even experienced business owners making these huge mistakes or making very preventable mistakes. What are some of the more common mistakes or some of the more preventable mistakes that you see business owners make financially that a bookkeeper can help them prevent, or at least maybe make it a little bit less impactful if they do make a mistake?
One thing I would say, and I was trying to think as you were saying, I must have some stories, and I was like, I don't really have stories. But then I realized I have one person. She actually did have a bookkeeper or maybe an accounting firm doing her bookkeeping, and she came to me in very first year, because I kind of come from the philosophy of I only need to know as much as I need to know. So if I ask questions or questions I really need, but other than that, I tend to not dig around per se too much. Although I have one client who, asks for alerts if they get to a certain dollar amount in particular categories and stuff. So if I see that that particular category is high, I'll typically look in and see well, what numbers make this up? How is it, the amount that it is? But the lady that I was referring to, she came to me in the very first year I did her books. I always run prior financial statements. And when I ran her financial statements, I was like, wow, she made an awful lot of money her first year. It seemed maybe too good to be true. Because it seemed like a red flag that she made that much money her first year, I looked in there, and whoever did her bookkeeping recorded all of her income twice.
Wow.
Literally, all of her income was recorded twice. So I sent her a note, and I said, whoever filed your tax return, they need to amend it, because basically you've paid the IRS way too much money.
Double, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, hopefully, this is paid for me, forevermore.
Wow. Oh, that's a bad one. When I asked you this question, I wasn't expecting it that bad, but I guess that happens, huh?
Yeah, and I think in that case, business. I'm not going to say all business owners, so please don't take this as some type of blanket statement. But for the people who bookkeeping is incredibly painful for, we tend to want to ignore it, and so maybe we aren't as involved as what we need to be, or maybe we don't pay attention because we're like, oh, it'll get done, and whatever the case may be. So sometimes the best thing to do is to actually review and double check and say oh, does that seem right? And if it doesn't, maybe do a little bit of quote unquote, digging around, because tools such as QuickBooks, and I only mention that one just because that's what I'm most familiar with. If you see at the end of the year that, oh, there's 100,000 in income and you think that's too high, too low, you can get in very easily and see all the numbers that compile and add together to come up to a specific number. So it's really easy to investigate why did something show too high, too low, whatever the case may be. But for one of my clients, I also went a step further, because balance sheet for people who aren't bookkeepers, the balance sheet can be quote unquote confusing. And so things that hit the balance sheet, it's really cash going out of your pocket, but you don't see it on your P&L. So if you don't understand the correlation and why one is where it is, it can be kind of confusing. So for one of my clients, I created this really kick-ass Google Doc that has all of his stuff by month. So all of his P&L is there. Then all of his balance sheet items are there, and he can see, okay, this is really where my cash is going, because I made $600 payment to a credit card company, and it doesn't show on my P&L, but definitely shows my checkbook. So things like that, can help too. And especially when you start looking at things over a 12-month time frame, you can start to see those little trends, like, oh, okay, like all of a sudden XYZ expense spiked in this month. And, oh, yeah, that's why, I traveled and I took a trip, so I had lodging and airfare and all that stuff. So sometimes the just paying attention to things, and putting them in a format that works good, helps too. Whatever that format is for each individual.
Excellent. Very good.
And then our another question we have is like, what are some of the online tools and apps that you can recommend to small business owners so that they can track the income and expense information easier?
One tool I absolutely love, it's called Manila, and I'll be sure I give you the URL for it. In Manila, once you connect all of your bank accounts, credit card accounts, you can actually, if you want to, you can connect your Groupons and Living Socials, but everything is in one dashboard for you to look at. Manila does a ton, so you have one login for one website. It saves all of your PDF statements if they're available from, each particular lender. Whereas, like, for example, I have Bank of America for my credit card, and they only keep statements for like 15 months or something. And Manila will keep them forever, but they're automatically put into Manila.
Oh, that's nice. So
nice.
the PDF version is.
Yeah. So if I ever need something 5 years from now, providing Manila is still around, exactly, it'll still be there. Cable companies like Verizon, you can connect there. They'll send you reminders telling you, hey, in 3 days your bill is due. I think they also have an option for a week too. So one, it like houses everything in one location that you can go to and pull everything. And then they'll also send you the reminders to make your payments too. So if you're a person who gets so incredibly busy with things that you forget that the payment date is approaching, something like Manila is like so incredibly useful.
I'm marking that down right now.
Yeah.
we're taking notes.
Oh, I think we will be looking.
Yeah, we're taking some serious notes here. So.
I love software, but like that one, when I discovered it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the best thing I've run across in a year.
So that's just like a web app or something, right?
Yep, a web app. They might have it available on the phone. I'm not 100% sure because I still am way more comfortable with using my laptop versus my phone. So there's that one that's really cool. I have one person who sends me deposits via Evernote, and we just have like a shared folder. So the Evernote lovers out there. Someone on Twitter the other day was telling me, and I haven't checked into it at all, and I don't, again, no idea if I'm going to pronounce this right, but that IFT or whatever that.
Oh, if then that. If this then that, or something like that.
That one.
I have an account. I have to learn how to. I have to actually learn how to use it. I actually, it's funny because with the Evernote, for people out there, they just had that security issue where they reset everyone's password, and I'm getting notes from IFT to reset my IFT recipe with Evernote. So, but IFT is really cool.
Yeah, and someone on Twitter was telling me there's two that she uses for bookkeeping. One with Evernote to record her things, and I don't know how because I don't use IFT myself. But also with Shoebox. So somehow she uses IFT to help her direct where various things go for her bookkeeping.
Oh, excellent! Awesome. Very good. I'm not sure if you know any mobile apps or any tablet apps that you use or that you would recommend.
For myself, like keeping track of my mileage is probably the most quote unquote like thing that's hardest for me to remember, because I know last year that's one area where I definitely I didn't think it was worth it. Then when I got a $12,000 tax bill, I realized it's worth it.
That's what I did.
That's what Misty helps, and I always forget to, when we're out on business, to track the mileage, and I got to get better at this. I mean, we're fairly young as a company, but I'm getting better at it. So
he's like get your iPhone and then or get your tablet.
But it's funny because I do have an app on my phone. I forget.
But of course, you're driving, so
I forget what it's called. Yeah, there you go. See, how good is that?
I use Notes too.
Notes. There you go. That's an easy one. But I always forget that I have it. And
plus, it's easy because you can just like after I've done doing it, then we're back home. What I do is like I email it back to him. So,
but here's the thing: I get in the car, and I forget about. Oh yeah, I got to track mileage. So I'm like, get this, take this mileage down, and go back and forth. But do you use a particular app, Michelle, on your phone or on your tablet?
Until I started getting in the habit of recording my mileage, I would actually have.
Oh, you're in the same boat. There you go.
Yeah, on my dashboard, like record mileage. And I tried, I can't remember the name of the app anymore. I thought it would be super simple. It wasn't as intuitive as I liked, so I just literally used the Note app on my Android to like record the date, the time, what I'm doing, type thing. And it works easy enough for me. If I take big like road trips, like I went up to Boca Raton last year, which is like 3.5 hours or something to see a client, I made sure like I emailed myself on top of it. Just in case.
You
don't want to lose that.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's 400 some miles round trip, and I want every darn penny.
that mileage adds up now. So you want to make sure you keep track of it. I find the hardest thing is to remember actually keep track of it. To be honest with you, but yeah, I mean the Notes app is probably good. I mean that's all IRS requires is make sure that you keep careful records of mileage and dates and the purpose of the trip and that type of thing, right? So. I guess
how they always ask like beginning and ending mileage at the end of the year for your car, like as a whole. Apparently the Prius like quits counting mileage at 299, and I'm at 225. So I told my sister, I said, "What happens? What does the IRS do?" Like, my ending and starting was 299.
Oh my goodness! Wow! Oh my goodness! Well,
I have no idea what they do.
I'm sorry. What was that?
So I have no idea what the IRS does in a case
That's
like
amazing.
that.
I didn't realize that the Prius stopped at 299. I mean, I'm sure people go beyond that. I mean, it's a pretty well built car. That's odd, and it's a digital odometer, so that's really weird.
It shouldn't stop,
no, right? That's odd. I don't know.
Must be like a Y2K programming issue.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Jeez. Any other productivity apps that you can recommend? I mean, because again, being a VA, being in business, efficiency is probably one of the more top priorities that you have to deal with, and I'm sure you deal with a lot of different folks and people that have different levels of priority and organization. So I'm sure you're passing along, well, here's how to be organized. So anything that you use to be better organized, and this doesn't have to be financial or tax related, but just part of your business.
I would say probably two things that are worth recommending. I know it's going to sound like totally old school, but I have one of those Expanda files from Office Depot that are by month, January through December. Oh. And when I get those little teeny receipts or bills that come in the mail that are related to the business, because I do try to go paperless as much as possible, but it's also not worth my time to stand in front of my little all-in-one printer doodaddy and scan things. So the paper that comes in, I'll just slip into the appropriate month. That way, if I ever have to pull something up throughout the course of the year, I can normally pin it down, and I don't have to look through 12 months worth of stuff.
That's a good idea.
Look by month.
You said you were going to do that, but we tend to forget.
See, this is one of the reasons why we had you back is like, we need some serious organization on this side of the microphone. So we're learning a lot today. We're definitely learning a lot today, which is good. And as soon as we get off this call, I think I'm off tomorrow, so I think we'll know what we're doing tomorrow. We're going to be organizing ourselves. Exactly, we're going to run there as fast as we can. But anyways, Michelle, it's been a quick half hour, and we want to thank you very much for coming on with us on PodJamTV Live. For folks that may not know you, and obviously now they know that you're a virtual assistant and do bookkeeping and all kinds of great stuff for businesses, can you tell everyone they want to talk to you or want to contact you? What's the best way to do that?
Most reliable method to assure that I do get it would be through my website contact form. My website is thevirtualasst.com. Of course, Twitter's really good too, but because sometimes I haven't been on it all this weekend, so I do unfortunately miss things.
Mm-hmm.
So Twitter's good too. It's just not reliable. So if you really, really want to find me, through my website's best.
Yeah, and for sure we're gonna put that again in the show notes.
Yeah, we can highly recommend Michelle. I mean,
she's very knowledgeable, and she can help a lot of business. Look at us.
Oh, absolutely.
We learn already
absolutely. And I know, Michelle, I know you've your business has grown quite a bit, and you've got quite a network. And if you can't help directly, I know that you can hook people up with other people in your network. And Michelle's just a great resource all the way around. And we've known her for quite a while. We highly recommend her. So, Michelle, thank you very much for being on with us. And I think this is a very appropriate topic this time of year. I know we learned a lot from having you on. So thanks a lot for coming on again, Michelle.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me again.
Excellent. You want to talk about who we have on next week?
Yes,
Let's see if Michelle knows this person.
Oh, she does.
I'm sure she does.
She knows a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's very popular. We have Gabriella Sadino next week, and she's going to be talking to us.
She's known as SEO Copy on Twitter, right?
So
people might know her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, Michelle, you know Gabriella, right?
Yes, of course I know Gabriella.
It's a very small world.
See, I told you, she knows a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. And what are we going to talk about with Gabrielle?
Oh, we're going to talk about SEO.
Yes.
Engine optimization.
She is, she's out in San Francisco, and she is
she's
incredible.
amazing.
Amazing with that stuff, and that's very, very important. And certainly there are things, if you have an online business or a website or blog, and you're trying to get noticed, certainly through the search engine, that's really the way to do it. Gabriella really knows her stuff, and so we're going to talk about SEO and content creation.
Getting
a
lot of tips from the experts.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that does it, right?
Yep.
That does it for another week on PodJamTV Live. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in live or watching this on the replay. We really appreciate it. Please come back every Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll have another great show. And also, look for us on our weekly podcast, Inspiring Connections, which comes out every Tuesday. And those shows take these interviews and present them in an audio format. So if you can't watch the video, or you might not have time, or it might not be convenient, you can certainly download this audio format and put it on your MP3 player or your iPhone or Android device and listen on the way to work or working out or running around. Yeah, it's a great way to listen in. So
and learn.
And learn, exactly. So I think that'll do it. So this is Marty and Misty, PodJamTV Live. We will see you next time.
Go.